Alright everybody, we're going to talk about graphing lines using slope-intercept form, and this is one of my favorite things ever to teach. So go ahead and pause and write down your lesson title, standards, and your I can statement, and then I immediately want you to go all the way to the end of the video and I want you to look at the 3 pictures of my notes. So remember that I have given you little squares of graph paper. You're going to need 4 of them today, and you're going to have to tape them into your notes so that you have graphs to go along with your equations. Okay, so go ahead and scroll forward and take a look at what your notes should look like by the end of this particular section. Okay. All right, let's get started. So here's your formula that you need. You need the y equals mx plus b. That is the formula that we are going to use throughout this entire unit. Okay? So what I did is I gave you an example right underneath it in slope-intercept form. So notice that in green, the 2 is your slope, and then the 6 is the y-intercept. Now keep in mind that the y-intercept is where your line crosses the y-axis, and we did that in last unit. Okay, you just didn't know that that's what we were doing. So go ahead and pause and copy all of that down. Don't make your graph real big because we don't have a lot of room to spare on the note sheet in your notebook. So go ahead and pause, copy that down, and then we'll go on. Okay, so here we go. We're going to write an equation in slope-intercept form of the line with a slope of 1/4 and a y-intercept of -1. Okay, and then we're going to graph it. So basically, you take your y-intercept, which is b, and that's -1, and you take your slope, which is 1/4. Okay, they give you that in the problem. Now, all you have to do is plug that into y equals mx plus b formula. So for m, you take the m out, put the 1/4 in. So you have y equals 1/4 x, and then instead of the plus b, you put what b equals. So that's -1. So there's your equation in slope-intercept form. Now we have to graph it. Basically, you plot b, and then starting at b, you count the slope. Okay, so here's what that looks like. So b is -1. So that is right here on your graph. So plot b. Now, starting at b, you're going to go up 1 and right 4 because we have a +1 and a +4. So starting at -1, I'm going to choose a different color here. Okay, you're going to go up 1, and then you're going to go right 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then that's where you are going to put your second dot. Okay? Now, you want to do the same in the opposite direction. Okay? So instead of going up and right, you are going to go down and left. So we're going to go down 1, and then we're going to go left 4. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that's where you put your second, or I guess in this case your third dot. Now you can definitely see where your line should go. Okay, so you draw your line straight through those points, and then you throw some arrows on the end and you call it good. Okay, you're finished. Now let's do another one. So write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line that has a slope of 4 and whose y-intercept of 3. Now, I've given you 2 different possible answers, and I gave you these 2 answers there because these are very, very common mistakes. Now, you have to make sure that you are following your formula. M is attached to X, and B gets tacked on the end. So I have a lot of students who say that the slope is 4 and the y-intercept is 3, and they write it this way. And that is not the right one. You need this one. Okay? So 4x plus 3. Okay? Moving on. Now, here's one that's a little tricky because this is in standard form instead of slope-intercept form. So what you have to do with this one is you have to solve it for y. Okay, you have to solve that for y. Now think back to 2.8 where we solved literal equations where we just moved letters around. That's all you're doing here. So you start by getting rid of your x value. So on both sides of the equation, you're going to subtract 5x from both sides, okay? And then that's going to leave you with 4y equals, put your negative 5x first because that's going to be part of your slope, okay? That's going to be part of your m. Now, to get the y by itself, you need to go through and you need to divide by 4. Now, don't just divide one thing by 4, you need to divide everything by 4. Okay, so that's going to cancel. That's going to leave you with y equals negative 5 over 4 x plus 2. Okay, now this is your equation in slope-intercept form. Please do not freak out at the fraction. That gives you your rise and your run. It's just your directions, okay? So plot B on the graph, so you go up to positive 2 and plot B, and then from there you count out your slope. Now you've got a negative 5, which means you're going to go down 5, and you've got a positive 4, which means you're going to go right 4. The negative slope means that you better be going downhill, okay? So you start at your y-intercept of 2, and we're going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that's where your second dot goes. Then you go back in the opposite direction. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to go left 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's where the other dot goes. And then from there, all you have to do is just put your line in there and then throw some arrows on the end and you are good to go. Okay? Now, let's move on to this one. Do you remember what the graph of y equals just a number is? It's either vertical or it's horizontal. Okay, so notice in this one that there is no x. Okay, so no x means no slope. So what kind of line has a 0 slope? That is going to be horizontal. Okay, so you graph the point at 0, negative 3. Okay, because the negative 3 is really your b. So you plot the point at 0, negative 3. And then you draw a horizontal line at negative 3, and you're finished. Okay, next one. What we have here is I'm giving you a graph. I'm giving you the graph of a line, and you have to figure out what the equation is from that line. Okay? So basically, what you want to do is you want to start with finding the y-intercept. B is always easy to find, okay? So first you find B, and then second you count out your slope. You pick another point and you count out your slope, all right? So if you take a look at this line, okay, that's graphed, you have to figure out where it crosses the y-axis. So in this instance, our graph crosses the y-axis right there at 0, negative 3. So your b value is negative 3. Then you pick any other point on the line that you want. It doesn't matter what point you pick. So say I pick this one, okay? You could also pick this one. You could pick this one. All right. What you do is you count out your slope. So you're going up 1, up 2, that's plus 2, and then you're going right 1, which is also plus. They're both positive. So then your slope in this case is 2 over 1, or you can say 2. Okay, either way is fine. I will accept either one. So then you put your slope and you put your y-intercept into the equation, the slope-intercept formula, the y equals mx plus b, and then so hopefully you come up with 2x minus 3 for your equation. Alright, so here's one I want you to try out on your own. Go ahead and pause the video and give this one a try. Now, don't think you have to copy down the graph. I don't really care if you copy down the graph or not. I just need you to tell me what B is, what M is, and then put them into one equation. Okay, so when you go to find your y-intercept, you look at where your line crosses the y-axis, and in this case it crosses right here at 0, 1. That's your b. When you go to count out your slope, you use another point. So from your y-intercept, you're going to go down 1, 2, 3, that's negative 3, and right 1, which is positive 1. So your slope is negative 3 over 1. Okay, you can also just say negative 3. That's also fine. So then you come over to your list, okay? Now remember, b is positive 1. That's positive 1 right there, okay? So you're looking for y equals negative 3x plus 1, and so hopefully you chose that one. Okay, so that was the last example I have, okay? These are pictures of my notes that I wanted you to go through and look at before you started taking notes. Now, I highly advise you, now that you have your notes taken, to go back and watch the video again to make sure that you understand what I'm talking about. Now, we will go over examples in class tomorrow before we start the assignment to make sure that this all makes sense, okay? So, I will see you tomorrow.